So I'm a little bit late on putting this video up. I have a lot of books to talk about and I'm trying to keep it quite short, so we're gonna try and speed through this video. Hi everyone, my name is Chloe, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for being here today. Today's video is going to be an anticipated releases for the first 6 months of the year. I'm saying anticipated and I sort of stumbled over the word because some of them are already out. It is a fair way into January now. I'm just a bit late putting this video up, but I am still going to talk about some January releases that I'm excited for, one of which I've already read, but we'll just ignore that. But basically I'm going to talk about books that I'm excited for the next 6 months. I was going to do the full year, but one, I don't know everything that's coming out later on in the year. I'm sure there's still going to be plenty of announcements of things I'll be excited for, and also there was too much to talk about just with the first 6 months, so we're going to break it into two, and I'll do another video like this hopefully in June, actually before the second half of the year starts, but we will see. So like I said, I want to go through this quite quickly. I'm probably not going to give the best synopsis of a lot of these books because I tend to like to go into books not knowing too much about them, but I will give you brief information and sort of why I'm excited about them. Most of these books are by authors that I've already read, partly because it's just easier to find the information about those books. You can go on Goodreads and sort of see new releases from authors I've already read, but also because I do find it hard to find information about books I'm excited for from authors I haven't read, because there are so many of them. I'm like, where do I even start? There are a few on this list that I'm going to start with, and one of the ways that I do kind of get hyped up about new books, other than sort of just seeing them on BookTube and BookTok and all of the various social medias, is from subscription boxes, because obviously there's a reason why I subscribe to them. It is to kind of send me books that maybe I wouldn't have necessarily picked up, and also just so I can get really pretty editions of things. But there have been a couple of January releases that I kind of had on my radar, and then BookBoxes were doing them. So I will say actually the first books I'm going to hold up, if you don't want spoilers for the Fairy Loot if you don't want spoilers for Fairy Loot and Illumicrate, maybe look away for a little while. I will say actually the first one is a Fairy Loot adult book that came in the December subscription, even though it is a January release. So I feel like most people know that this one is in Fairy Loot at this point, but I'm going to hold that book up now, so if you don't want to see it, please look away. But that book is Fae-bound by Sarah L. Arife. This book is, as the name would suggest, a sort of fae-centered fantasy story, which isn't necessarily something I tend to gravitate towards. I think because a lot of the times you want to see are the sort of fantasy romance ones, and just maybe not necessarily my style of fantasy romance. But I have heard really good things about this author's other books, and I have been wanting to read and don't own, so I haven't picked them up. I haven't sort of gone out and bought them. So now I'm hoping that having this one in the house will actually make me want to read it, because like I said, I've heard really good things about this author's writing, so I'm intrigued to see what this one is like. Been getting a lot of hype. I want to see if it's worth it. The next one I have to talk about is the January Fairy Loot adult book, which has just arrived this week. So again, if you do not want to know spoilers, please look away now. But that book is The City of Stardust by Georgia Summers. I do not know too much about this one. It just says on the back, curses are made to be broken. I did definitely look at the synopsis and was like, oh, that sounds intriguing. So, because I was looking to see whether or not I wanted to skip anything. So let's just have a quick look. So yeah, it's basically about this town where there is a curse placed on it, and a main character sort of sets out to try and break the curse. And it says in the synopsis, her hunt leads her into a seductive magical underworld of power-hungry scholars, fickle gods and monsters bent on revenge. And I feel like it was the power-hungry scholars bit that sort of intrigued me a little bit. So this is one by an author I haven't read that is definitely on my radar, and like I said, I have it in the house, so I should probably read it soon. And then another one that I actually haven't read from the author before, because it is actually their debut novel, is I believe coming in the Illumicrate box this month, but I haven't got the Illumicrate box yet, so it's not confirmed, but also like it's been leaked online that it is. So again, if you don't want to know what's in it, please look away now. I'm not actually going to hold it up, but I will put a picture here, and it is Voyage of the Damned by Frances White. So this one says, for 1,000 years Concordia has maintained peace between its provinces. To mark this incredible feat, the Emperor's ship embarks on a 12-day voyage to the sacred goddess's mountain. And basically there are loads of sort of important people on this ship, and on this particular journey one of them is murdered and everyone is a suspect. And basically it is a fantasy mystery thriller sort of book, and I don't know why, but something about it is really intriguing me, so I'm looking forward to this one as well. And like I said, a lot of the ones by authors I haven't read from before tend to come my way through subscription boxes, and I'm going to make an effort to actually read more of them this year, so we'll see how that goes. But now we're on to books that I can probably tell you a little bit more about, the first one being because I have already read it. So although we're already past the release date for all the January books I want to talk about, I am still going to mention them briefly. The first one being Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is the sequel to Divine Rivals. I've already read this one. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I loved both of the books in this duology. It's about these two young reporters who have a bit of a rivalry at work, but unbeknownst to them, they are also magically sending these letters to each other. They have these typewriters that magically send letters and they don't know who they are corresponding with. And there's also a war going on between gods, but it's kind of like more like a World War I, World War II kind of vibe to it. It's a really good book. I really, really love this. And yes, I have already read it, but it would have been wrong to not put it on my anticipated releases for January because it very, very much was my most anticipated book this month. Then we have another one that is already out. I haven't actually read this one yet though, but I do own it, and that is A Fragile Enchantment by Alison Saft. I don't actually know the storyline of this one too much, but I read another Alison Saft book last year. I read A Far Wilder Magic and really enjoyed that one. So I bought this one when I saw it in shops early before Christmas, and it says a love story for the ages threaded with intrigue and scandal. From all the artwork I've seen of it, it looks like a Regency era inspired fantasy. So it says that the main character is a dressmaker. She has magic in her blood that lets her stitch emotions and memories into fabric, but it's the same magic that will eventually kill her. She's making the prince's wardrobe for a royal wedding. It says she finds herself drawn to the prickly cold prince, and an unlikely friendship begins to blossom into something more. That is until an anonymous gossip column is released, exposing their chemistry and threatening scandal. The tensions rise within the royal court and protests rage outside its walls. Neve must decide what cost she is willing to pay for a future and a love she never thought possible. I feel like this should have got moved further up my reading list. So definitely an anticipated release, and I will read it hopefully soon. Both of those came out on the 4th of January, and then the other anticipated release I had for January came out on the 9th. I do have this one, but it's downstairs and I haven't run to grab it, but it is The Atlas Complex by Olivia Blake. This is the third book in the series that started with the Atlas 6. I could not remember the name of the book then, but I'm not going to explain obviously what this one is because so much has happened since then, not necessarily good things. I really, really loved the first book. It's sort of a dark academia fantasy book where this group of 6 are invited to join something called the Alexandrian Society, where basically they are caretakers of lost knowledge from the greatest civilizations of antiquity. They are the foremost secret society of magical academicians. I can never say that word. Like academic magicians basically in the world, and basically they join this and they're told that they have sort of 1 year to qualify for initiation, and it is during that first year and sort of all the stuff that goes on alongside that. And I really, really liked the first one, and I was very disappointed by the second one, so I am holding out hope that the third one kind of redeems the series, but we'll see. It's anticipated but also terrified of is probably the right word for this book. So we're going to go on to some February releases now, and the first one I have down in February is Infinity Alchemist by Kacen Callender. Kacen Callender is an author that I've read 2 books from before, I think. Did not love the first one I read, but the second one, Felix Ever After, I really, really enjoyed. That was a contemporary YA. This one, I believe the name would suggest it is fantasy. Let me just pull up the synopsis. As you can tell, I've done really well at researching this video. I have read the synopsis of most of them in the past, but like I tend to block a lot of it from my mind because I like to go in not knowing too much. So it says it's about a quest that leads 3 young alchemists towards unexpected love and unimaginable power. Only an elite few are permitted to study the science of magic, so when Ash is rejected by the Lancaster Majors College, he takes a job as the school's groundskeeper instead, forced to learn alchemy in secret. When he's discovered by the condescending and brilliant apprentice Ramsay Thorne, Ash is sure he's about to be arrested, but instead of calling the Reds, Ramsay surprises Ash by making him an offer. Ramsay will keep Ash a secret if he helps her find the legendary Book of Source, a sacred text that gives its reader extraordinary power. As Ash and Ramsay work together and their feelings for each other grow, Ash discovers their mission is more dangerous than he imagined, pitting them against influential and powerful alchemists, Ash's estranged father included. Ash's journey takes him through the cities and wilds across New Anglia, forcing him to discover his own definition of true power and how far in other alchemists will go to seize it. It's not necessarily one that, having read that synopsis, I would have been like, oh yes, I need to read that immediately, but I did really like the last Kacen Callender book that I read, so I'm excited to see what their writing is like when doing fantasy stuff, because like I said, all I've seen them do before is contemporary, so we'll see how that goes. And I think I said the date, but just in case I didn't, that one comes out on the 6th of February. Then on the 13th of February we have got a romance book by Olivia Dade. This one is called At First Bite. So in this one, our main character is broken up with by her fiance, and he says she has no choice but to move into the Spite House, into the house she recklessly bought him as a wedding gift. And basically that is a house that was originally built as a brick middle finger to the neighbours. It's only 10 feet wide, so it's sort of built to fill a gap in between houses, and it is actually next door to her ex, and also her ex's brother, who is on at the other side of the house. There's only a 4-foot alleyway in between the houses, and from the synopsis it seems as if the brother convinced the fiance to leave her, but I'm gonna guess there's gonna be some romance between her and the ex-fiance's brother at some point. I've read other books by Olivia Dade and really enjoyed them. I am realising though that I should probably read the Olivia Dade book that I own and haven't read yet, which is the which is Shipwrecked, before I read this one, but I am really excited for this one. So that one comes out on the 13th of February. Then on the 15th of February, we have another one that I have actually already read, but I don't own this one yet. I managed to get an e-arc of it, and that is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. So this one is set in the same world as S.T. Gibson's previous book, Tower of Blood. It's a Carmilla retelling. It's got a school setting. It's about this young woman who goes to this university, and while she's there, she forms some strange relationships with one of the other students and also with one of her professors. It's about vampires, but it's also sort of like told through this lens of this kind of inappropriate relationship that these two students have with this teacher. It's so good. It was one of my favourite books that I read last year. I gave it 5 stars. I'm really looking forward to having a nice copy of it on my shelf. Fairy Loot has just announced their edition of it, and I hopefully will be getting it. So this one, although I have already read it, it is still an anticipated release, and it comes out on the 15th of February. Then keeping up with the vampire theme, actually, the next anticipated release I have is A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faizal. This one comes out on the 20th of February, and again, I know very little about this one other than vampires and tea, which I feel like is kind of all I want to know. Also, like, the cover for this is stunning, and I have pre-ordered the Waterstones edition with the pretty sprayed edges. I have read another Hafsa Faizal book. I read, what is it called, We Hunt the Flame, and I have the sequel to that to read, and I did enjoy We Hunt the Flame. It took me a little bit of time to get into it, but I think I was just not in the right headspace when I started reading it, so my plan is to reread that one to finish that duology. But there's something about Tempest of Tea that is just really intriguing me, so I'm not going to read the full synopsis of this one, but it says it's an anticipated fantasy duology teeming with romance, revenge, and an orphan girl willing to do whatever it takes to, and from what I gather from it, basically she runs a tea room that caters to the vampires in society, but then her establishment is threatened and she has to sort of team up with other people to save that. And I've seen very good things online from people who have had early copies of this book, so I'm really excited to read it. And then the last one I have in February is coming out on the 29th of February, which is a date that sounds made up, but it is a leap year, and that is Empire of the Damned by Jay Kristoff. This is the sequel to Empire of the Vampire. It is a vampire story because that is apparently what is coming out in February. Why have I had 3 of them in a row? But again, I'm not going to give you too much information on this one. But in our first book, we follow a main character called Gabriel. He is basically a member of this brotherhood that is dedicated to defending the realm and church from the creatures of the night. But all of the other people in this order have sort of died out, and he is the only one that remains. The way the book is told is he has actually been imprisoned, and he is kind of telling his story of how he became kind of the last Silver Saint, and also about a search for the Holy Grail that is happening alongside it, which kind of gives you an idea of the sort of type of story this is. And Empire of the Damned is the second book. I believe it's going to be a trilogy. Most Jay Kristoff books do tend to be a trilogy, and it comes out on the 29th of February, and I don't think I have much else to say other than, actually, if you want to read the series, we are reading Empire of the Vampire for Christopher-Long. The live show is going to be towards the end of February, just before this book comes out, and then people will be able to immediately pick up the second book, and the live show for that should be sort of end of March, beginning of April time. So if you would like more information about that, the Christopher-Long Twitter is always linked down below. So that is all of my February releases I'm excited about. Moving on to March, the first one is one that I am excited about, but also I am not. It is A Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black. This is the second book in the sequel series to the Cruel Prince series, so I'm very much going to have to avoid any sort of spoilers, but basically I've just tried to give you like as vague a synopsis as I can, but I really can't because it will spoil things that happened in this series that started with The Cruel Prince. But essentially it is a fantasy series based around fairies, which I know I said I don't really read a lot, but this is one of the exceptions that I have read. And I did read The Stolen Heir last year, which was the first book in this series, and like, it was fine. I enjoyed it. It did feel like a letdown because I didn't think it lived up to the previous series, so I'm really hoping that this kind of fixes that. It just felt like I was a bit disconnected from the characters I was supposed to be following. I also feel like I went into it thinking it was a certain person's book from the first series, and it was focused more on sort of what you would assume is going to be their romantic interest in the book, and it just kind of threw me for a loop. I wasn't expecting that, and also realised that I did not remember enough of them in the previous series. I sort of remembered the character I thought I was going to follow, but didn't necessarily remember enough of this person, and yeah, just kind of, I don't know if I just went into it a little bit wrong, but sadly it just didn't grip me in the way that the previous series did. But I am hoping I enjoy this one now. I kind of know what to go in expecting, and this one comes out on the 5th of March. Then on the 7th of March, although let me preface this by saying I am using the UK release dates because I believe this one comes out in February in the US, and obviously different dates in other territories, but this is The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. Now, I read another Catherine Arden book and actually ended up DNFing the series. But it wasn't that I didn't enjoy it, it was just that there wasn't sort of enough to pull me back to read it. Like the second book in the series was on my shelf for a while and I just didn't pick it up. That was the Winter Night trilogy. But this one feels like a very different type of story, and I did enjoy her writing style, so I'm intrigued to try this one and see whether or not I like this one more than I did the Winter Night trilogy. Set during World War I, it says during the Great War, a combat nurse searches for her brother believed dead in the trenches despite eerie signs that suggest otherwise in this hauntingly beautiful historical novel with a speculative twist. So yeah, basically from the synopsis, it seems that when she goes to try and find her brother, she hears rumours about haunted trenches and a strange hotelier whose wine gives soldiers the gift of oblivion. Could Freddie have escaped the battlefield only to fall prey to something or someone else? And like I said, I did enjoy her writing style previously. I'm hoping that this is one that sort of compels me just that touch more than the Winter Night trilogy did, or what I read of the Winter Night trilogy did. So the next book that I have comes out on the 14th of March, and this one is Where Sleeping Girls Lie by Farida Abikeh-Imede. So I previously read Ace of Spades by this author and really enjoyed it, and this one seems to be along the same lines. It is a YA contemporary mystery set in a boarding school, and basically the main character's roommate goes missing. People think that she may have had something to do with it, so the rumours swirling around her means that she catches the attention of the girls collectively known as the Unholy Trinity, and basically the main character Sade starts to kind of investigate what has actually happened to her roommate, whilst also sort of being drawn to these girls and also getting help from her roommate's best friend. It says the more that Sade and Baz dig into Elizabeth's disappearance, the more she realises there's more to Alfred Nobel Academy and its students than she thought. Secrets lurk around every corner and beneath every surface, secrets a rival even her own. I'm very intrigued by this. Like I said, I really enjoyed Ace of Spades, so I'm hoping that this one is something that I enjoy just as much, if not more. And then the last book that I have in March comes out on the 28th, and that is The Perfect Guy Doesn't Exist by Sophie Gonzalez. Sophie Gonzalez is an author that I have enjoyed a lot of books from previously, and this one I'm very excited for. It says a fanfic writer brings her favourite TV character to life in this friends to enemies to lovers novel. And basically the main character Ivy has the house to herself for the week while her parents are away, and it says that she wakes up one morning and basically the fictional main character of her favourite fantasy TV show is in her room claiming to be her soulmate. So she realises that fanfic writing has somehow brought Weston as she's imagined him to life, but it turns out that the tropes she swoons over in her stories are slightly less romantic in reality, and her not so fictional crush is causing some real world problems. And basically to figure out what is happening, she enlists the help of her former best friend turned enemy and neighbour Mac, and then I believe that there is a romance between her and Mac along the way. And like I said, I've enjoyed everything else that I've read from Sophie Gonzalez, so I'm looking forward to this one. It does sound very fun. And then in April we have probably the book I'm most excited for in this sort of 6 months of releases. It's not my most anticipated book of the year, that will be in the second half of the year, but it is something I'm very, very excited for. It's one I don't actually have to look a synopsis up for because I know this one. It comes out on the 2nd of April. It is Here We Go Again by Alison Cochrane. This is about two sort of, I believe they were friends in high school and then they became rivals, and now they work at their old high school together, and one of their old teachers who they work with ends up getting diagnosed with like terminal illness. They end up agreeing to take them on this road trip as sort of a bucket list type thing, and it is about them two having to kind of get on along the way of this road trip, and obviously a romance is going to follow. It's called Here We Go Again, and I'm very, very excited for it. Like I said, it's one of my most anticipated releases of the year. I've read 2 of Alison Cochrane books and really, really enjoyed them. They were The Charm Offensive and Kiss Her Once for Me, and if this is anywhere near as good as those two, I'm going to have a great time. Also on the 2nd of April we have a book by Sarah Hogel, who wrote You Deserve Each Other, which I really enjoyed. She also wrote Just Like Magic, which I didn't love as much, and I am a little bit concerned because that one had a fantasy element in it and so does this one, and it was how the fantasy element was handled that I didn't enjoy. So we'll see. Hopefully this one is better. She's also wrote another book that I haven't read, but they're the 2 that I have, and I should probably say the name of it. It's called All Flames and New Fortunes. It is a steamy second chance romance about a magical florist's unexpected reunion with her high school sweetheart as she fake dates his soon-to-be stepbrother. I don't think I'd actually read the synopsis before. That's intriguing. It says she uses the language of flowers to help the hopeful manifest their love lives. So obviously she uses magic within the flowers, but she's given up on her own big romance many years previously. And then basically this plot happens where she has to pretend to fake date someone to get an invite to a wedding to help finance her business, and then that ends up with an encounter with her ex who broke her heart many years ago and has made her sort of swear off love, but now thinks that she is dating this other guy, and obviously hijinks are going to ensue from there. I'm not going to read too much else, but I am cautiously optimistic for this one. I did really, really enjoy You Deserve Each Other, so I'm really hoping it's more along those lines. There was just some weirdness in Just Like Magic that wasn't my favourite, but we'll push that aside. Then on the 4th 4th of April, we've got Your Blood, My Bones by Kelly Andrew. This one is by the author of The Whispering Dark, which I read last year and really enjoyed. Again, I don't know too much about this one, but I'm going to read you a very brief synopsis that says, twisted romance about loyalty, fate, the lengths we go to hide the darkest parts of ourselves, and the people who love those parts most of all. I've just read the synopsis of this and actually now I'm really intrigued. So basically our main character Wyatt inherits her family's old farmhouse and she plans to burn it to the ground. There is clearly some bad history going on there. But as she's doing her final walkthrough of her childhood home, she makes a shocking discovery in the basement. Peter, the boy she once considered her best friend, strung up in chains and left for dead. And basically he's been put through these sort of magical rituals and lots of pain and torture by the sounds of it. It says he's semi-immortal, he never remains dead for long, but he can't really live either. Not while he's bound to the farm, locked in a cycle of grisly deaths and painful rebirths. There's only one way for him to break free. He needs to end the Westlock line. He needs to kill Wyatt. And then basically they end up working together to kind of find a way to restore the magic on the farm because things have started going wrong with her parents not there as well. And I'm assuming also to try and like save Peter so he doesn't have to go through all this stuff anymore. I don't know, it sounds very intriguing and I really did enjoy The Whispering Dark, so I'm hoping that I enjoy this one as well. Then on the 11th of April we had The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. I have already talked about this one in a previous video in sort of books I want to read this year, the 24 and 24 video, and this one is a historical fantasy set during the Spanish Golden Age. I'm really not going to try and give a synopsis of this because I basically read the synopsis out in the last video and it still kind of didn't really sink in. But basically from what I do know, sort of our main character has some sort of magical ability that then catches the eye of the secretary to the king, and he kind of uses her skill powers to gain favour with the king after things had previously gone wrong in a war. And I think it's about her having to sort of survive in this world of nobility when there are many dangers to do with her and who she is and her background that could potentially make her a target. Then on the 25th of April we have got Funny Story by Emily Henry. I read all of the other Emily Henry adult romances last year and sort of got to the end of them and was like, oh, but now I need another one, so I'm really glad that there is another one coming out. This one is about two people who get dumped by their respective love interests because they then end up with each other. So basically Daphne is engaged to someone called Peter and Miles is with someone called Petra, and Peter and Petra go off together and Miles and Daphne end up being roommates because I believe they're both sort of stuck in a small town and sort of not having anywhere to live now, so they move in with each other. And it says that they mainly avoid each other until one day when drowning their sorrows they form a tenuous friendship and a plan. If said plan also involves posting deliberately misleading photos of their summer adventures together, well, who could blame them? So basically they are not necessarily fake dating but just kind of making it seem as if maybe they are dating to annoy their exes, and we all know that something's going to happen because it says, but it's all just for show, of course, because there's no way Daphne would actually start her new chapter by falling in love with her ex-fiance's new fiance's ex, right? I mean, obviously she will. I'm very excited for this one. Like I said, I loved all of the Emily Henry books that I read last year. And then moving on to May, we only have 2 books to talk about in this one, which I'm glad because this is taking a lot longer than I thought to film this. Mainly because I have to keep stopping to look up the synopsis. But for the first one in May, I don't have to because the first one is coming out on the 7th of May and it is Lore Olympus Volume 6. So again, not going to tell you the full in and outs of what this volume is going to be about, but it is essentially a graphic novel that is a Hades and Persephone retelling. It's also got many other gods from Greek mythology in there as well, obviously, but our main characters are Hades and Persephone. It's been a very slow burn romance and we've just really started having things happen, and then drama happened at the end of the last book, and I need to know what happens next. I'm really enjoying this series, and yes, I could read it online, but I really like having the bind-ups, so I'm looking forward to Volume 6 coming out in May. And then we have another book by an author that I have already mentioned in this video, and that comes out on the 28th of May, and it is Evocation, which is by S.T. Gibson, who wrote An Education of Malice, which, like I said, I have actually already read, but is coming out in February. This one, sadly, I have not been able to get any arc for, and this is probably the one that I am more excited for, so let me give you a brief idea of this one. So basically we've got our main character David, who was a psychic prodigy operating under the shadow of his oppressive occultist father. His father's now died, it's many years later, and he is sort of living a semi-normal life as a Boston attorney, and he's also moonlighting as a powerful medium for his secret society. But then the devil comes to collect on an ancestral deal, which means that his days are numbered and death looms at his door. So reluctantly he reaches out to the only person he's ever trusted, his ex-boyfriend and secret society rival Reese, for help. But however, the only way to get to Reese is through his wife Moira. Thrust into each other's care, emotions once buried deep resurface, and the trio race to figure out their feelings for one another before the devil seals David away for good. And this book just sounds so intriguing to me, and knowing how much I I've loved S.T. Gibson's writing in the other 2 books I've read from her. I am so excited for this one. The cover is also stunning. And yeah, if I could get an early copy of this one, it would be great. But I believe I've already applied for an e-arc of this one and got turned down for it, which like makes me sad. But I'm so excited to read it. Then we are on to the last month that I'm going to talk about in this video, and that is June, and we're going to start off on the 6th of June with Past, Present, Future by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is a sequel to Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, which I read beginning of last year, I think it was, and I did really enjoy that one. It's basically about these 2 sort of rivals at school, and they're on the senior dare night, and they kind of are thrown together within that, and it's sort of like a scavenger hunt thing that they are thrown together to complete, and obviously there ends up being a romance. I did really enjoy it. I really like the dynamic between the 2 characters. My only issue with it was that the actual sort of romance part of it felt like it came very quickly towards the end. Like the build-up was really good, and then I just had some slight issues with it. I gave it a 4 stars. I still really enjoyed it, but I'm really excited for this one because I believe it is about them sort of now being at college for a year, and I feel like now that the relationship is more established, obviously any of that sort of romance stuff isn't going to just feel really quick and thrown in at the end. It's going to be like the bulk of the story, so I feel like I could actually really enjoy this one, especially if the dynamic between the characters remains as it was in the first one. Then also on the 6th of June we have another one that's by an author that I've already mentioned in this video, although it might not sound like it. This is 12th Night by Alexin Farrell Falmouth, which is actually the real name, I believe, of Olivia Blake. Olivia Blake is their pen name, so I've already mentioned the Atlas Complex. This one is one of their YA contemporary romances instead. They write these ones under a different name. So the previous one I've read from this author in this genre is My Mechanical Romance, which I did really enjoy. It was just, it's not like an all-time favourite, but it was just a fun time. And this one also sounds like it could be a really fun time. So it's called 12th Night, but night with a K, as in like knight in shining armour. And it does seem as if it is a somewhat retelling of 12th Night, the Shakespeare play, because I mean the main character is called Viola. It's kind of giving it away. So basically the main character not having the best time, like just in high school in general, and her sort of escape from that is to go into this online role-playing game, but she says the online spaces aren't exactly kind to girls like her, girls who are extremely competent and have the swagger to prove it. So she creates a masculine alter ego, choosing to play as a knight named Cesario to create a safe haven for herself. And then this football player, who is the student body president, she is a vice president, ends up getting injured, and he ends up starting to play the game to pass time, and it quickly becomes apparent that their alter egos in the game are surprisingly well matched. It says as long nights of gameplay turn into discussions about life and love, Vi and Jack soon realise they've become more than just weapon-wielding characters in an online game, but Vi's been concealing her true identity from Jack, and Jack might just be falling for her offline. I'm excited for this one. Like I said, I did enjoy the previous YA romance that I read by this author, so hopefully I will enjoy this one as well. Then we have one that actually I'm not sure if it's coming out in June for me, because it's listed as being the 11th of June, but it's not showing up on UK website, so I don't know if it has a UK publisher yet, but I'm still going to put it on here just in case, and that is Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. I read The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay towards the end of last year and really enjoyed it. It ended up being one of my favourite books of the year, and I do want to go back and read some of his older stuff, but also this one, his newer release, does sound really intriguing. It is a twist on the cursed film genre. So it basically says, in 1993 a group of young filmmakers spent 4 weeks making Horror Movie, which is a notorious disturbing art house horror flick. The weird part, only 3 of the film's scenes were ever released to the public, but Horror Movie has nevertheless grown a rabid fan base. 3 decades later, Hollywood is pushing for a big budget reboot. The man who played the Thing Kid is the only surviving cast member. He remembers all too well the secrets buried within the original screenplay, the bizarre events of the filming, and the dangerous cross lines on the set that resulted in tragedy. As memories flood back, the boundaries between reality and film, past and present, start to blur, but he's going to help remake the film, even if it means navigating a world of cynical producers, egomaniacal directors, and surreal fan conventions. Demons of the past be damned, but at what cost? Like I said, I'm just intrigued by this one, and having really loved The Pallbearers Club, I'm hoping that this is something that keeps me sort of equally invested as that book did. And then the last one that I had to talk about is one that I did not know was coming out until I started preparing for this video this morning. So it is called One of Our Kind, and it's by Nicola Yoon, who is the author of Everything, The Sun Is Also a Star, and Instructions for Dancing. I didn't love Instructions for Dancing, that was her last YA book, but this is her first adult novel, and I'm really intrigued to see what she does when writing an adult novel. This sounds quite different to some of her other books, but also does have some of the themes that have sort of been running through her books. I'm going to read you the synopsis for this one because, like I said, I only saw it this morning, so I feel like I've not had enough time to take it all in. But it says it's a thought-provoking look at what it means to be truly free in America. When Jasmine and King Williams moved their family to the planned Black utopia of Liberty, California, they hoped to find a community of like-minded people, a place where their growing family can thrive. King settles in at once, embracing the Liberty ethos, including the Lux Wellness Centre at the top of the hill, which proves to be the heart of the community. But Jasmine struggles to find her place. She expected to find liberals and social justice activists striding for racial equality, but Liberty residents seem more focused on booking spa treatments and ignoring the world's troubles. Jasmine's only friends in the community equally perplexed and frustrated by Liberty's outlook, a frustration that turns to dread when their loved ones start embracing the Liberty way of life. As Jasmine learns more about Liberty and its founders, she discovers a terrible secret that threatens to destroy her world in ways she never could have imagined. I'm very intrigued by this one, and like I said, just really intrigued to see what her writing style is like for an adult audience, because I definitely enjoyed her first two books, and then sadly the third one just felt lacking somewhere, and I feel like maybe having sort of a new challenge could be exactly what was needed, sort of just something to sort of reinvigorate it a little bit. So we will see. But this has actually been a lot longer video than I thought it would be. Like I said, there are so many more books and I'm excited. Like I know that there's definitely like my two most anticipated books of the year coming out in July and August. So there is so much more to come, and I will do another one of these videos hopefully in June, so I won't just be telling you about books that have already come out. But that is everything. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff down below. Let me know what books you are excited for in the next few months, and I will see you guys soon with a new video. Bye.